All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, How to Host a Successful Fun Run Fundraiser. We're absolutely thrilled to be welcoming our guest today from Brighter Tomorrow, who has a lot of experience in this area. This is a little bit outside our normal wheelhouse, considering that we normally deal with event fundraisers, charity auction galas, which is absolutely a crucial part of any nonprofit's fundraising arsenal, so we thought it was very important to cover. So let's get started. Just a few housekeeping items. All attendees will be on mute throughout the broadcast. The webinar slides will not be distributed, but a video version will be sent out via email within the next 24 hours or so. We're going to throw it on YouTube, and then we're going to send out an email to all of you, and you can watch it at any time. If you have any questions, we want to hear them. So go ahead and type them into the questions section of the toolbar, which you'll find over on the right side of the GoToMeeting pane where it says questions. You can ask them throughout the webinar. We're not going to answer them in real time, but we will have a Q&A session at the very end where we'll go through the questions and hopefully we'll get to yours. You can live tweet us at WinspireMe using the Fun Run Fundraiser during the webinar if you want to call us out in any way or show your appreciation. So we'd love to hear from you guys. Today's guest, which I'd like to welcome, is Steve Patzkowski. How do you say your last name, Steve?
Patzkowski. Yeah, the Z throws people off. But yeah.
I love it. What is that? Where's that from?
It's actually Ukrainian. Yeah. So half Scottish, half Ukrainian.
Awesome. Well, Steve here is the Director of Development at Brighter Tomorrow. He has a lot of experience with running fun runs. Steve, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am what I call myself a social impact entrepreneur. So I'm involved in a couple of different organizations that really have a very significant philanthropy and give back component to it. So with Brighter Tomorrow, we develop and manage fun run fundraisers for nonprofits. So we go out, we just help nonprofits raise considerable money for their causes. So it's really something that's kind of important to me. So entrepreneur, but also very much interested in the give back component. I'm also a PTA dad and a Rotarian as well.
Awesome. And tell us, who are some of the clients that you've worked with in terms of doing fun runs?
You know, we've done a number of them for Rotary clubs around mostly focused on the Western United States. We've done events for chambers of commerce, other nonprofits. We're working on some bigger events right now that are coming up in the fall and the spring. We're going to do a big one for the San Francisco Zoo on their campus. We're also going to be doing one for Habitat for Humanity, and then a number of other regional nonprofits. So really kind of a broad range of groups. Junior League is another one that we're working with as well.
And what's kind of the average size, or can you give me a range, kind of what's your smallest and then what's the biggest fun run you've ever done?
Sure. Well, we've certainly had some smaller ones in the earlier days, 300, 400, 500 people, but we've also had events up into the 2,000 and 3,000 range. So we average, the typical event has maybe 1,000 to 1,500 people. That's kind of a 1,500 is kind of our wheelhouse target, is what we kind of shoot for most events. And it really kind of depends on the community and the city and size of the demographic there.
Very cool. It sounds like you have a lot of expertise running these big events. So definitely glad to have you here today to share some of your expertise. So thank you for joining us.
I'm actually very excited about it, and very happy to be able to share this information and to the nonprofit community and hopefully help some folks out.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, for those of you who don't know, my name is Ian. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Winspire. We love hosting these webinars, just sharing information all about how to improve your fundraising efforts, whether it's at your charity auction events or otherwise. So this is a great tool here. Before we get started, just want to share a little bit about Winspire. For those of you who are unfamiliar, we do travel packages, no-risk travel packages for use in your charity auctions, silent auctions, live auctions, raffles. We've raised over $47 million for nonprofits. We've been in over 40,000 events, and we've had almost 80,000 winning bidders. So if you have a live auction or a silent auction, we'd love to hear from you and help you out with your event. Brief overview of what we're going to be covering today. Number one, we're going to go through the planning and operations of a fun run, how to secure sponsorships, how to promote your event, all the pieces that are involved in registration, which is a huge aspect of it, and then we're going to talk about a few different revenue streams. Before we get into the meat of it, though, I thought we'd hear from you all out there. I wanted to have a little quick audience poll. I want to see how many of you have actually attended a fun run. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to launch this poll, and go ahead and you'll see it on your screen. You can select between 0, maybe you've never been to one, you've been to 1 to 3, 3 to 5, or more than 6. You're hooked. So go ahead and submit your answer now. We'll give you about 5 seconds here. I have about 70% of you who voted. Very interesting. About 3 more seconds. 2, 1. All right, I'm going to close the poll and share the results. Awesome. So about average, looks like there's quite a few out there who've actually never even been to one before, which is great. You guys have come to the right place to learn all about it. Some of you, I would say a big piece of you guys have at least been to one. Some of you have been to a lot. What does this tell you, Steve?
This is actually, pretty typical, I would say. The fun runs have been around for a few years, and they're gaining in popularity. So I think there are a lot of people out there that have at least been to one. And but it's still a growing sector. So the 0 at 25% actually, it doesn't surprise me. That's about what I would have expected, actually.
Great. And those folks out there, that 13% who've been to more than 6, you guys are either runners or very committed philanthropists. So I commend you both ways.
Yeah, I bet about 12% of those 13% are runners, I'll bet.
Exactly, right? Looking for any chance they get. All right. Let's ask one more question. This has a little bit more to do with the fundraising side. How much do you think a fun run with 1,000 participants should raise on average? A, less than 10,000, B, 10,000 to 25, C, 25 to 50, or D, 50,000 or more. I'm gonna launch this poll right now, and let me know what you guys think. I'll give you just a few moments here to share. All right, we got about half of you have voted. I'll give you another 5 seconds or so. 3, 2, 1. All right, close that poll. We'll share it. All right, so you guys say between $10,000 to $25,000 dollars is what you should raise. Steve, what do you make of this?
Well, the answer to this question is the answer that everybody hates is that it depends. But I would say that the majority of them, if you do them right, you should be in the C or D bracket with 1,000 participant raise. And really the big variable, which we'll get into later when we talk about sponsorships, is the corporate sponsorships. And that there's going to be a lot of variations there on how big of in the community, do you have really big companies? Is it a lot of little smaller local retailers and merchants? So that there can be a really big swing in the dollars raised from the sponsors, just depending on where you're at. If you're in a big city and in an area where there's a lot of big corporations, you can get some pretty big chunks. And if it's a smaller town, then you have to be realistic. So that's really where the swing is.
Right, and this I assume this talks about the gross profits, right? So it costs a lot of money to run run an event, so this is what you end up with on your bottom line. But in terms of actual dollars raised per person, right, you're talking about $50 to $100 just per person if they, especially if you can start doing peer-to-peer fundraising, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, it's an important distinction. You can absolutely raise, in Steve and mine's conversations, you should be able to raise more than $25,000 if you have 1,000 participants, if you're doing it right. And that's really why we're here today, is to talk about how to be most efficient in your efforts and make sure that all those efforts amount to something, right? Which should be a sizable sum. So let's go ahead and hide these results, and let's continue with the presentation here. Thanks for that, everyone. All right, great. Starting with planning and operations. I must say real quick, one thing that Steve didn't mention that he specializes in that I think is really cool, always results in awesome pictures like this, are these color runs. Those are really fun. You see pictures of those all over social media. Is that your favorite type of run to do, Steve?
Yeah, that's kind of the color-themed run is kind of our our flagship, if you will. It's definitely the most popular run. Most of the runs that we are doing these days are color-themed runs, just because the kids just have such a blast and it's such a good draw. But we have other themes too. We can do, superhero themes. Things around the holidays like Santa runs,
right.
turkey trots are popular as well. So there's a number of different ones. And a minute ago I mentioned we're doing an event for the San Francisco Zoo, and that's going to be an animal-themed run.
Yep.
So there's really a lot of variations you can do, but the color one is definitely the most popular these days.
Yeah, I feel like anything where you can wear a costume, where you can justify wearing a costume, then you've got a good theme, right? Whether it's an animal run, a superhero run, or anything like that, allow people to kind of get dressed up and have fun with it, then you're already winning. And this color one, I think, is fabulous, in part just because pictures get splashed all over social media and people can't help but pay attention, right? So that's another piece that we'll talk about here, and just kind of promoting your event and the post-event, how important that piece is. So let's go ahead and start planning and operations. Tell me about picking the right date, Steve.
So this is obviously a very important component of having a successful event is picking the right date. And there's a number of different factors that you want to take into consideration with picking the date. And a big one, of course, is going to depend on where you're at geographically when you're looking at weather. So, you want to, this is different than a real serious hardcore timed run like a 10K or a marathon, where those hardcore runners, it doesn't matter. I mean, they're like the post office. It doesn't matter if it's raining or snowing or whatever. They're going to be out there. But this is quite different. This is a family-type event, fun event. So you're going to want to have it in a time of the year where the weather's, reasonable. So, August in Arizona, probably not a good idea. January in Minnesota, probably not a good idea. So you really want to kind of look at it from that component of it too. And then another time of the year component would be holidays. So you want to try to avoid the major holidays, because so many people leave town and have family commitments and things like that. So it might be tempting to say do one over Easter break, because the kids are out of school, but a lot of people are going to be out of town. So you want to maybe kind of steer away. A week or two before those events is fine, but that actual weekend of those holidays can be tough. And then if you're going to be doing an event that you're going to be focusing a lot on kids, like a color-themed run or a superhero run or something like that, then you want to take into consideration the school year as well. So a lot of people are out of pocket and gone during the summer vacation. So it can be tough to get a big draw when you're doing a run during the summer. So you want to kind of look at it from the perspective of having it during the school year, where people are around and they're going to be in town and home for that. And then another, probably the final kind of really important one, is really very localized, and that is looking at the other events that are going on in the community, the competition basically, because every weekend people have an opportunity for a number of different activities and things to do. So if there are large annual events in your community that have a lot of people drawn to them and a lot of people go to them, you want to avoid those weekends. You want to go on weekends where there's not a lot of, quote, competition for your event, so that you can, again, try to maximize the draw for the folks that come into your event. So those are some of the main components of picking the right date for your event.
So basically, spring and fall, and choose your dates carefully. I know it can vary depending on where you're at in the country, but it's always kind of the busy season whenever it comes to any sort of fundraising. So that's very good about picking the right date. What about venues and permits? I know this is a big question I have. I mean, how do you even go about selecting a venue, and then who do you go talk to?
Sure. So the venue, it can really be important for a number of reasons, but from an organization standpoint, just working with a venue that's flexible and that's going to be cooperative with you is important, and that's something that you may or may not know going in, but that's definitely something that you want to take into consideration. And when you're looking at how big is your event going to be, if you're going to have 1,000 people there or 3,000 people there, the size of the event and what that venue can hold comfortably is a big factor of it as well. So you want to have you want to pick a venue that's going to be able to accommodate the number of people that you're going to have. And so there's another component of that, which is the access to the event, parking and transportation. You want to pick an event that it's easy for people to get to. If it's 20 miles out of town, that it's going to be tough to get as many people to go versus if it was just 5 minutes away. So there's a balance there. When you're looking at venues, also if you're going to do something that is, for example, like let's say at a community college campus or a big park or something like that, then you're dealing with less issues, and this kind of ties into the permits, less issues of street closures and dealing with the various city, fire, police, and things like that, as far as having to shut down streets, and there's additional costs sometimes in those things. So those are kind of some of the considerations you want to look at, the big ones for the venue. And then the permits, you're going to be dealing with primarily the city that you're working with. You're going to probably need an event permit, and then depending on the locality, the municipality, you're going to definitely want to talk to police and fire and let them know that you're having the event and what you're planning so that you can coordinate with all of them. So you're really looking at talking at the city planners and the police and fire. You want them all at the table and on the same page because you don't want any surprises. You don't want the fire department coming in the day before the event and say, hey, wait a minute, you guys didn't talk to us, you can't do this, and now you're scrambling trying to figure out how to fix that. So you want to be out in front of that, talking to those agencies, getting whatever permits that they require and the forms that they fill out. And most of these municipalities, it's pretty straightforward. They hold a lot of events, but there's paperwork you got to fill out, and there might be some fees involved with that. But you want to get that out way out in front so that there's no surprises down the line.
That's good. And I mean, typically we're talking about with a fun run, right? It's like a 3 to 5K, or it's like a 5K, right? So
typical,
so you need to be able to contain or plan for, roughly like 3.5. Is it 3.5 miles? Distance.
Yeah,
right?
And then you've got there are certain types of courses where you can do 2 loops, so you don't need to take up as much real estate. So there's different ways to manage that, especially if you're going to be doing it on city streets. You want to minimize the amount of street closures and things just because of the hassles and the costs involved in that.
Totally makes sense. You mentioned a couple examples like a community campus, or community college campus, or a park. Is there any other examples you've mentioned? I think stadiums. I think you did one at the Rose Bowl, or you have one at the Rose Bowl.
We're planning one at the Rose Bowl, so that's a nice a big venue. Obviously, you got your field and your parking and everything taken care of. Although there's those types of venues tend to have higher rental fees because there a lot of the venues there won't be an actual rental fee, if you will. There won't be a cost for it. And some of them will. So that's another, consideration when you're looking at the financial side of it is can we afford a, $1,000 or $1,500, rental fee? Are we going to have a big enough event to kind of, to justify that? Or do we want to maybe go with something more like a college or high school campus for maybe a smaller event, a first year, where your cost is going to be, minimal to nothing? So.
Got it. Very good. All right, great. Volunteers. I know this is probably one of the biggest components of running an event this large where you have to manage so many people. How many volunteers are we talking here for an event of 1,000 people?
So depending on the type of event, we usually like to see, a good 25 to 50 volunteers or more, depending on, like, for example, with a color-themed run, you've got color stations, 5 of them through the course, and there's 6 or 8 people at each station that are throwing color on people that are running by. So you need a lot more volunteers just to even cover that. So there's, but if it's a different type of event, if you don't have that, then you wouldn't need as many. But you're looking at, a good 25 to 50, and that sounds like a big number, and it's a little bit scary at first. But when you start to look at being able to go to the high schools and college and junior colleges in the area to tap into the kids that need hours for community service, it's pretty easy to fill your volunteer roster, because this is something, it's going to be during the day, it's going to be on a weekend. It's not, an event where it would be more difficult for those kids to attend. So it's going to be easier to get those kids and those folks for that. And really, with the volunteers, you're looking at kind of putting together all of your various different committees. And
what are some of those committees?
Well, you've got things like just some of the planning committees, people that are going to be dealing with advertising and marketing of the event, setup, cleanup after the event, registration. There's a number of different components to it, and so what you really want to do is you want to kind of plan that all out in advance, and then that you kind of create your list of needs of volunteers from all those committees, and having having a chair of each one to kind of manage it, and then X number of volunteers that are required for each of those functions.
Awesome. I think we're going to actually talk about some of the committees here in a little bit. Did you have anything else about volunteers?
That's kind of it. I mean, I think it's just, you want to make sure that you really kind of think through all the different aspects of the event from start to finish, and that you get enough folks, enough volunteers for each one of those groups.
Right. The nitty-gritty details.
Yeah.
You have pictures of outhouses and trash cans here. That's something that people often forget.
Well, it's not something that you think of right away, for sure, but there are a number of things that when you've got 1,000 to 1,500 or even maybe 2,000 people at a venue, there's going to be some resources that are going to be strained. If you're looking at, let's say you had a college campus, for example, there's going to be some restrooms on the campus somewhere, but there's no way that it's going to be enough to facilitate 1,000 people or 1,500 people. So you're looking at what we kind of look at is, porta potties. We're looking at a minimum of 1 per 200 participants, and you need to have one that's ADA compliant. And you're also looking at, a couple of wash stations for every 1,000 participants. So that way you've got, and that generally kind of lands in the same area. Kind of near the start finish is where you're looking to place those. You're going to also want to have the trash and recycling. And again, so a lot of these things, like the porta potties and trash and recycling, a lot of this, and we can get into this when we're talking a little bit more about sponsors, but a lot of this can be in-kind donation. So even though it would cost money to have these services, a lot of times you can get this donated, so it's not an out-of-pocket expense. That vendor gets to have that sponsorship, and you've got no out-of-pocket. So that's another little kind of a side note for that. And for a run, you also need water. So we like to have at least 2 bottles of water per participant. And you're going to have, at the start and finish line, you're going to have some, and it's a really good idea to have a water station, halfway through the course as well. Because a 5K is not a long run, but again, these are not, most of the people that are attending it are not runners, they're not athletes. So, it's a distance for them, and having that there for them is really important, having that water there. And then you're looking at things like additional things like EMTs. You're going to want to have EMTs there. You're going to want to, just in case there's any situation, something happens to somebody, things can happen. So you want to have some medical technicians there. And snacks and food, those are optional, and we'll get into some options of that a little bit later as well, but it's nice to have some snacks, and that could be handled with vendors, or it can be handled, internally with your organization. And then you're going to have things like there's going to be a need for some booths and tables for registration, volunteer check-in, info, questions that people will have. So it's a good idea to look at all of those different components. So there's a lot of little details in there that you're going to want, and things like electricity, for example, because if you've got online registration, you're going to want to have internet capability there, and potentially electricity. So all those little things, and that can be dealt with by generators, things like that. So a lot of little details in kind of small things that you don't think about, but if they're not there, it could create a situation for you.
Very good. Lots of details. Sounds like. Tell us about parking.
So parking, if the best case scenario is the event that the venue has plenty of parking. So if it's like a college campus or something like that, there's a pretty good chance they're going to have ample parking. So you want to have parking that's either at the venue or fairly close to it. So it's 5-10 minute walk at the most. And if you don't have that, or if you think that the event's going to be even bigger than what that can handle, then you're going to be looking at some potential shuttle services to get people from areas where they can park, where there's enough parking, to the event and then back afterwards. So that's something that's really dependent on the size of the venue, parking, and of course the size of the event, the number of participants. And then one of the other pieces of parking that you might not think about is the signage for it. So you want to make sure that if you've got 1,000 people showing up to an event all within say an hour, that's a lot of congestion. That's a lot of people moving in and out. You want to have really clear signage, and in addition to signage, back to the volunteers, you're going to have parking people kind of directing people so that that flow is smooth, and also so it's safe, because if you've got 1,000 people showing up, getting in and out of their cars, walking around, there's a lot of pedestrians around. So you want to make sure that that whole process is both smooth and safe for the people that are there. So that's some pretty important components about the parking and transportation.
Great. I know this is a question I know I'm wondering about, especially with the color runs. How much cleanup is there?
Well, if it's a color-themed run, then yeah, you're going to definitely have some extra cleanup. You're talking about, sweeping with brooms and dustbins, and you're talking about blowers. And actually, one of the easiest ways to clean it up after you've kind of scooped up all the big stuff is a water truck. You just pressure washer it away. So definitely that's going to add some additional time to the cleanup. But even if it's not an event that has that kind of mess, if you will, you got 1,000, 1,500 people. There's going to be trash. There's going to be things that are going to be, around. So you're going to want to have, enough folks on your, your cleanup and tear down crews, your volunteer crews, to manage that. And you really want to be looking at allotting 1 to 2 hours after the event for that. So, when you're creating, back to volunteers, when you're creating your volunteer lists, the different tasks and when those folks are going to have to be there, and you want to make that really clear so people understand that, if the event ends at 1, the cleanup crew isn't going to probably go home until 3. So that way they know that in advance, so they understand what they're signing up for, just to make that clear on the front end.
Great. Awesome. Got a lot to cover here, so I want to keep moving through. I know this is a huge part of running any sort of fun run event, as with any fundraising event, but this one in particular, just because you have so many eyeballs, more than a typical charity auction event. Tell us a little bit about securing sponsorships.
Yeah, so sponsorships is really where you want to be thinking about getting the most of your revenue from the event. So, you're putting on the event to give yourself a really good reason to ask your sponsors to write a check. So, the types and the sizes of sponsors, are really going to vary in each community and each nonprofit, the connections you have, and so the range can be quite different, and you really have to kind of structure it in a way that's realistic for your existing sponsorship and companies, and then what else is in the community. So again, kind of back to what we were talking about earlier, if it's a small community and you're really dealing with mostly local merchants and smaller businesses, you're just not going to get companies that are going to be writing $10,000 and $15,000 checks. They're going to be $500 and $1,000 and maybe $2,500, things like that, which is great. A lot of those certainly adds up. But if you're in a more a bigger city with bigger corporate sponsors and that can write $5,000 and $10,000 checks, then you definitely want to take advantage of that. You don't want to leave that money on the table. So it's really there's a lot of variances in there on you can do. But one of the keys, which actually I guess we'll get to on the next slide, is the outreach strategy for the sponsors. Oh. And so that slide just gives you an example of a title, platinum, and gold, silver, bronze, and we have the festival is kind of one of the ones that we do.
I think this is really important, this slide here, and because I know a lot of people are going to have just kind of questions. I know I work by example. It's really good to be able to see what maybe some of the levels are that you offer at your events, and then what that includes. So as you guys can see here, Steve, has 5 levels from title, platinum, gold, silver, and festival. Is this pretty typical for your fund runs, or does it vary much?
Yeah, this is actually from an event that we do for a Rotary Club in a town that has a population of about 50,000 people, and we get about 1,500 participants to this event. No huge corporate sponsors, there's no Intel or Apple or anything like that, but there's the local businesses, banks, things like that. So the title sponsor. So as you can see, each level as it goes down, you get less. The sponsor gets less things for it. So you're creating that value, which is something that we'll talk about in a minute. But you're creating value for the sponsor, so they feel like they're getting a lot for the dollars that they're contributing.
Outreach strategy. You mentioned that just a second ago. This is a pretty important part of any fundraising effort. Is there anything that's specific to fund runs?
Well, I think it's probably very similar to other events in that you want to really kind of get your messaging really in sync and the timing of your outreach, and then having a strategy, your team, so that who's going to talk to which sponsors, so that you want to make sure that you talk to everybody on your list, but you also you want to make sure that you don't have 3 people calling the same sponsor, because you're not coordinating it properly on your back end. So you want to kind of have that volunteer team and kind of divvy that up so that each person or each group is going after some specific sponsors, and there may be some strategic reasons because of the relationships and things like that, and that always helps a lot if you can do that, if you've got that. So, but you definitely want to have it very coordinated so that your messaging is the same, it looks professional, and you're doing it and get out there early. You want to if you can 6 months before an event or more, start talking to these folks, and I think that's probably very similar to other events as well. So I don't think there's a huge difference for a fun run from that respect. Other than, you probably can go after some of the more local, smaller businesses as sponsors, because they're going to be getting that exposure to the community that is kind of their client base. So that might appeal to them, whereas a gala may not, because they're not seeing that as much of an exposure for the community. So that's another piece of it.
Title sponsors. First, tell me, what is a title sponsor?
A title sponsor is basically the main sponsor. They get top billing, so they're going to get the most exposure, the biggest. Their logo is going to be the biggest on the marketing materials and on the signage and things like that. And so it's at the end of the day, you want to get the biggest check that you can, but you want to kind of also be thinking about going after, if you can, a company that's a key player in the community. If they're known, that's good, because they're also going to be working with you to promote the event as well. I mean, you don't want them to just write a check. You want them out there pushing and promoting the event too. So if they're, if they've got high visibility, big name, a lot of exposure, that's going to help you on the back end as well. So you really want to kind of be looking at somebody that not just that can write the check, but that's also going to have bring that other value to you as well.
Speaking of value.
Yeah.
You talk about being value-driven with your sponsorships. What does that mean?
Well, what we like to look at is really kind of highlighting for the sponsors the bang for their buck, if you will. So, you're asking them to write you a check, and you want to really kind of, as much as you can, provide them with the most value that at least they're check. So with a fun run, this is a little different than the gala dinner or a golf tournament type of event, because you're going to get a lot more exposure to the community, because the entry fee is much lower and it's a family-oriented event. You're going to get a lot more people there. You have the potential for a lot more people there. So you want to kind of leverage that, saying, hey, this is going to be 1,000, 1,500 people. This is going to be a big event. You're going to get a lot of exposure to the community. And you want to highlight the fact that the sponsors associating themselves with your cause, which is a positive thing. You're doing good work in the community. And it's a positive event. A fun run is that kind of a healthy event. It's a family-oriented event. It's a community-building event. So you can really kind of leverage that that they're associating themselves and sponsoring and supporting that type of a benefit to the community, if you will. So I think that's a very important piece. And then, of course, you're going to be able to offer them, inclusion in the marketing materials. Their logo and name is going to be on your flyers and posters and things like that, and potentially the event T-shirt on the back of it. So there's an ongoing value to the sponsor that their name is going to be out there for an extended period of time and in multiple places. So you really want to kind of build up, here's all the stuff that you get for sponsoring us, versus just, hey, we want to check. So that always helps.
Cool. This is a big one, I know, for how the heck do you get 1,000 people to come to your event? That can be pretty daunting for anyone, especially who's never done an event of this size. So tell us a little bit about what your methods are for getting the word out in the community.
Sure. We look at the event promotion as a multi-tiered, multifaceted endeavor. So the first one that we have that we're going to talk about here is social media. Yep. And with social media, what we've found, and social media is an evolving animal, so next week it could be completely different because it really is moving fast. But what we're finding at this point is, the two main social medias are Facebook and Instagram. And Facebook is really kind of ages 30 plus, so it's more for marketing to the parents and the adults. And things like Instagram and some of the other ones are really kind of more where the kids are hanging out. So you can kind of craft your social media plan around that. And it's good to market to the kids, but ultimately it's the parents that are going to be signing up for the event and paying for it and getting them there. So you want to make sure that you're getting out in front of them too. So social media, you want to kind of tap into your own, Facebook and Instagram and things like that, and Twitter. But also, you really want to tap into all of your sponsors. You want them out there doing it too. You want to really kind of, and we'll talk about that in a minute, sponsor networks. But you want to, so it's really getting out there. So it's broad coverage is what you're looking for.
And on social media, because that's such a big one for promoting any event, is there any specific posts or type of posts that you recommend? Is there like videos, or is it just pictures? What's the best way to get the word? Do Facebook ads? What's the best way to get it out on the Facebook platform? Because I know that's
sure. We've done a lot with Facebook, and what we typically do is we will have a specific event page for the event, and we'll promote that all over the place. And you want to post content, and it's really a timing issue. So you want to put the page up pretty much as soon as you've kind of locked in the event and you're gonna have it. But you really want to kind of ramp those posts in the last, say, 6 weeks or so before the event, where the 3 or 4 weeks, because most of your registration is going to happen in the 3 to 4 weeks before the event. It's a really steep curve, and you want to be posting every couple of days, the week or two before the event. But you don't want to be posting every couple of days 6 months before the event, because that's just going to annoy people. So you want to kind of put it out there occasionally in the earlier months, and then as you get closer to the event, you want to be posting it. And pictures work pretty well. If you have some videos, let's say this is not your first year, you're doing your second year, you've got some video from it, that's really helpful too. Short videos, under 2 minutes, a minute and a half, minute long, people watch those. So we find that to be pretty effective. And then really the other piece of it is just getting the networks to like it and share it. So that means everybody on your staff, all your volunteers, and then the same for all your sponsors, really kind of get it everywhere so that you're building a network of followers for the event and branching out as much as you can.
Love it. This is a big one. Get that word out around town. Put up the sign.
This is a big component of it. So what we do for our printed marketing materials, our physical marketing materials, is it's kind of a three-pronged approach. We've got street banners, which is on this slide. If you see the one on the left, you can kind of see it's out there. And this is for one of the Rotary clubs that we do an event for. And so those are strategically placed around town. And you have to follow the city's rules and get the permits for putting up signs. You can get in trouble for just putting them up wherever you want. So so that's important. And then we have store posters, and we also have postcards. So we like to distribute those postcards pretty much wherever people congregate. So if you've got coffee shops, restaurants, anywhere that people will kind of let you put them up, you want to do that, and you want to kind of get permission. If it's a good idea to get permission. But any stores that will allow you to put it up, that's a good idea.
Perfect. Networks. I know we talk about this a lot with regard to just charity event fundraisers, leveraging networks. But I mean, it rings even more true here, especially since sponsors play such a big role. What are some things you can say to your sponsors to encourage them to help you get the word out?
Well, I think if you can kind of connect with them and get them on the same page with you, that they are looking for the value for sponsoring your event, and the more people that are at the event, the bigger it is, the more exposure they get, the more value they're getting from it. So they're kind of, once they write that check and they're on board, they're kind of partners with you. So you want to engage them in the outreach campaign, and you want to make it easy for them. So you don't want them to have to do any work. So you want to provide them with the materials, both electronic and printed materials, to get it out in their network, and walk them through the process of the Facebook page and linking to that, so that they're out there pushing it into their networks as well, because they've got could be massive networks into the community, and so you want to take advantage of that and get as many people aware of the event and to the event as possible. And again, the big piece for that is just turnkey for them. Don't make them have to figure anything out. Just hand it to them on a silver platter, basically, because then they'll do it.
Perfect. And your networks.
And this is pretty self-explanatory, but your own networks, which is all of your board members, your staff, volunteers, everybody that's connected to your event, donors. You just want to push it out to your whole network. And then one of the things that's really helpful is if you can ask them, engage them to then push it out to their network. So now you're really pushing it out to that second and third tier, so you're getting the word out in a lot of different places. And so anybody that's connected to your organization is quote your network. So you want to kind of just push it out as much as you can. So all those folks.
Love it. All right, I know this is a big one, registration, just because you got to get all those people and you got to get them registered, and then managing that database can be a pain in the neck, especially if you are just still working in Excel. So tell me a little bit about how you guys manage your registration.
Sure. So anymore, I mean, you have to have online registration. I mean, that's just the way things are done now. And so you want to pick a platform that and you may already have one because you're working with some of your other events. So you want to pick a platform that's really going to kind of do everything that you need it to do. And there's a lot of them out there, companies like Eventbrite, Active Network, Race Roster, Red Pudding. I mean, there's a bunch of them. So you kind of want to just kind of investigate them and look at, functionality, price, and make sure that it's really going to kind of work for you, and then implement it and use that for your registration, because it's just so much easier to track everything and handle the payments and everything that's attached to it. There's the really good software out there these days, so you want to kind of go with that.
Love it. Volunteer sign-up sounds like,
yeah, and that's usually that can also be part of the registration software. Most of them have a volunteer component, so they can sign the waiver online, so you're protected there, and you get them signed up. And so we talked about this a little bit earlier, but you're looking at 25 to 50, depending on the size of the event and the type of the event. And it's a really good idea to early on in the process of developing the event is just, again, to go through that process of really creating your list of committees and thinking everything through, and kind of get on it early to get those volunteers signed up, so that you know that you're covered for the different pieces that you need, because there will be different times during the course of leading up to the event and then day of that you'll need different folks. So you want to kind of walk through that very carefully and make sure that you've got all those buckets kind of covered, if you will.
Got it. Packet pickup. I know packets are a big piece. That's probably a big piece that where you need all those volunteers, right? Is just to manage all the packets.
Definitely.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about those tables.
Sure. A couple of key things about packet pickup. You want to really encourage people to do the packet pickup on the packet pickup day, which is generally the day before the event. Sometimes you can have 2 or 3 days before the event. You can have it on a couple days. But you really want to try to get as many people as you can to do that before the event, and that just reduces the congestion and the confusion the day of the event. And there will always be some folks that will pick up their packets at the day of the event, and that's fine. But you want to, if you can get 70 to 80% of them coming to packet pickup, you're in good shape. You want to try to encourage that as much as you can. And then for the packets, it's nice to give people a nice bib, an event T-shirt makes a lot of sense. And then you can get a lot of swag donated. Your vendors and your sponsors, and then also you can just reach out in the community and get swag. People, it's a fun thing, especially for the kids, to walk away with a bag of goods. So it really makes people feel good that they're getting a whole bag full of stuff. And it can be simple things like coupons, or we've had them where dentists have donated toothbrushes and just all water bottles and all kinds of different swag that you see. And so it's just a nice little bonus for the participants to get that bag of goodies that they feel like they're really getting a lot of, again, value for them as well for the event.
Right. Day of. The day has arrived.
Yeah, so day of, you're going to get up early.
Yeah.
You're going to get up early. Most of these events, the ones that we do, we usually have a 10 o'clock start time, but first people are getting there at 5:30 for setup and things like that. So that's part of that volunteer crew and planning that out. But for the day of the event, you want to make sure that you've got your online registration there as well, because there will be people that will come and register day of the event too, not just packet pickup, but actually register for the event. So you want to have, power. I mean, laptops can run on batteries, and that's fine, but you probably want some power there, maybe a backup generator, and internet connection. And you want to have enough staffing to manage that flow. So you're going to have a packet pickup and a registration booth, if you will, and you're going to want to have enough volunteers and staff to manage that flow so that it doesn't get backed up. And so those are kind of important things. And things like, the internet working and power and things like that, those are things that you're going to want to go to the event site before the day of and do a test, and just to make sure, because sometimes these events are, if it's out kind of, away from town, you might not have great reception, so you might have to deal with some kind of booster or something like that. But you just want to make sure that it's going to work for you the day of the event, and you want to know that before the day of the event. You want to kind of get there, and so that you've got that level of comfort. And then you're going to put on the event. You're going to have the run, and people are going to have a good time. And we like to do events and have like a little festival afterwards, so it's kind of brings the community together, and vendors are there, and the sponsors, we allow them to have booths there. So again, there's that value for the sponsor. They're getting that face time with the people in the community, and it just really kind of will walk away with a really positive experience that they're associating with your nonprofit. And that will lead to not just the dollars that you earn for the event, but also the awareness of your organization, which is a huge piece for a lot of the nonprofits that we work with. Yeah, they want to raise the money, but what a big piece that they're after is increasing their exposure in the community. And so this type of event can really do that. So you have an ability to leverage that.
Awesome. Additional revenue streams. You know, this is always helpful. The point of the event is to raise money. So you've mentioned sponsorships. Obviously, there's ticket sales. What are some other ways that people can get out and raise some money?
Yeah, the other big one is the peer-to-peer fundraising, which you know, actually has been going on forever. You know, kids have been doing walkathons for their school since, you know, I was a kid, and I'm pretty old, so it's been going on a long time. But now it's electronic, and it's built into the registration, you know, the software that you're going to use. So, you know, it's great to have a family come and, you know, say mom, dad, couple of kids, you're going to get the registration revenue from that. But if the kids can then go get grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles and coworkers and neighbors all to contribute on the peer-to-peer side, you can double and triple the amount of revenue you make from those participants by tapping into that that peer-to-peer component. So it can conceivably be one of your bigger revenue streams for the event, and it can easily surpass the registration revenue if you really kind of push that out. And it's dependent on your cause. If it's something that, you know, really kind of kids can latch onto, then that can really be a big one. And it's a great way to engage the community. Again, now you've got, you know, that community feeling and spirit, and people are rallying around your cause, and that's just a really good benefit for you.
Great. Vendors. This could be a big one.
Yeah. So it's, you can kind of see here. You can see some of the tents on this slide. We kind of have, you know, these you know, festival atmosphere after, where we invite all of the sponsors to have a booth, of course, but you can also invite vendors and you know, food booths, food trucks, those types of folks. So you can set up your own you know, hot dog and hamburger grilling and sell sodas and things like that, and it can be hit and miss. You know, we've had events where you know, the nonprofit just ended up with, you know, 12 cases of hot dogs after the event because they bought way too many. So that's just a big hassle. So one of the ways to go about taking care of the food aspect is invite the food trucks and vendors to come, and then just ask them for, you know, 10 to 20% of the take. So you don't have to really do anything. They know how to run their food truck or their booth. You just basically provide them the real estate, and the customers are there, and then you get a check from them at the end. So it's a really great way to kind of add some revenue to the event for really little to no work, which is always nice.
That's good. These are different from sponsors, right? Because they're at the event, they're selling goods, and you said that, are they paying to be there, or do you kind of share some of the proceeds that they make? What's kind of the revenue split?
Really, it's a rev share, but you can charge a nominal couple $100 booth rental fee if you want to as well. But it's nice to also get a piece of the back end, and they're pretty used to that. That's something that they're comfortable with typically. So it's pretty easy to get them to go along with that. I mean, we're talking things like, you know, food trucks, you know, sandwiches, hot dogs, hamburgers, ice cream vendors, soda. And depending on the venue, you might have alcohol, you might have beer and wine. You know, some do, some don't. There's pros and cons to both of that. But there's a number of different vendors out there, and one of the most popular ones is the ice cream trucks. They're lined up around the block for that one. So that's really fun for the kids especially. So it can be a nice little additional revenue stream. It's not going to be your biggest revenue stream, but hey, you know, an extra $1,000 or two is great. You know, the more the better.
Always helps. That's great. And one final revenue stream that we always like to talk about, just because it's what we offer here. It's something called the Winner's Choice Raffle. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Winspire and what we do, we offer no-risk travel, so you can reserve packages and include them as a grand prize in a raffle drawing. So we call it a winner's choice because you can reserve several. Right, a recent one that we did. Right, the winner of this raffle can select between 1 of 3 experiences: go to Tuscany, go to see Hamilton, meet the cast, or go to Napa Valley and do a wine tasting experience. And these are really successful raffles. We found that people have a lot of success selling these tickets. So you can set up a booth just like another vendor, sell tickets, and anywhere from $20 to $100. And in order to pay for the package, you only have to sell 100 of them out of the 1,000. So and you can absolutely raise that extra $1,000 or $2,000. That'll help add to that bottom line. So definitely a really good way to do it. If you want to find out more information, just let me know. We'll have our contact information at the very end, and I can send you some information on how to run a winner's choice raffle with raffle ticket templates and flyers and the whole bit. And, some of these flyers you could actually probably repurpose and use for your fun run as well. So another great option for just an additional revenue stream. With that, I think
go ahead. Raffle's a great component to it because you've got a captured audience there.
Right.
It's a really easy way to, like you said, pick up an extra, couple $1,000 for sure.
Love it. With that, I want to thank you, Steve, for coming and sharing your knowledge today. We got a few questions here that we're going to get to in just a second, but I wanted to give you a chance to offer your services to folks out there who are thinking about running a fun run. Tell us about what you have here today.
Sure. So as you can see from our talk today, there's a lot of moving parts here. There's a lot of components to it, and obviously we didn't get into all of it. You can't in an hour, but we covered the core stuff. So what we offer is a turnkey package. We offer soup to nuts, everything that you need to have a successful fun run fundraiser, including a professional race director that handles the operations side of it, which is the course design, packet pickup, the actual event, running, managing all of that. So we do everything for you. And with our program, we do a 50% split with you on the race registration revenue, and then you keep 100% of the sponsorship revenue and 100% of the peer-to-peer revenue. And then, of course, if you do an auction or a deal with food vendors and stuff, you keep 100% of that too. So the majority of the revenue is going to stay with your organization. So we have a nominal front end fee that we charge, and we're offering through this webinar, we're offering a $500 discount on that to save you some money on the front end. So we'd be happy to talk to you. We like to plan events 6 months in advance, so that we have plenty of time to build everything out. We can do it in 3, less than that, and you're really kind of pushing it. So we like to 4, 5, 6 months, something like that. So we're booking fall events now, and then of course we're working on a lot of spring events too for 2018. So yeah.
Great. Now Steve's number is right there, the 415, as well as his website, so you can get in touch with him there. I'll have his email towards the end when we're answering questions here in just a couple slides. So thank you for that, Steve. If you guys like this webinar, if you guys like learning more about how to run fundraising events, please subscribe to Winspire News. It's our blog on our website where we're always doing webinars where we post twice a week informational articles about how to run event fundraisers effectively. So you can subscribe here. I have this link. You can also just go to winspireme.com and click on the blog. We're giving away a $1,200 travel package that you can use in your next event fundraiser. We do it once a quarter. We actually just drew someone earlier this month, and we're going to be announcing the winner tomorrow in a blog post, which would be really cool. So we do this drawing once a quarter. We'd love for you guys to get involved and start consuming our content and be a part of the community. So check out this link, and you can also find more information about Winspire there at winspireme.com and that phone number there as well. We also have a podcast that we've started earlier this year that's been going great. It's called Events with Benefits. My co-hosts Renee Zhao and Danny Hooper are just fabulous. We've been just getting a ton of really good guests. I think on this next run, we're actually going to have Steve come and talk about fun runs again, which would be really cool on that podcast. But we have everything from donor development, legal considerations, how to do a golf event, how to run a raffle, how to get a Google grant. We have really great guests who have joined us and just are there to share their knowledge, right? Just rising tide lifts all ships. We're here to share our knowledge and make sure that all of you out there have all the tools that you need to raise funds. So check us out at eventswithbenefits.com, or you can search for Events with Benefits on your podcast app and give us a listen. I think there's already about 25 episodes out there maybe, so check us out. And again, I want to thank Steve for coming out today and sharing his knowledge. His email is right there. You can shoot him an email if you have any questions or want to follow up on any of the pieces that he shared today. My email is there as well if you have any questions about Winspire. And with that, I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience. Are you ready, Steve?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So I know this is actually something that we talked about a little bit ago putting together this webinar, but Veronica Wenkamp asked about wondering about two organizations putting on a fun run together. What do you recommend for that?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, especially if you're just concerned about bandwidth for your staff and volunteers. This is definitely something that we do and welcome. It allows you to kind of spread that workload out amongst more people. Of course, you're splitting the revenue, but you're looking at creating a bigger event. So I think it's a great idea. It's something that we do. In fact, we have a very specific package for PTA organizations where we do that on an even bigger level, where we'll partner with an entire cities, all of the PTA groups for all the schools to do one big event. So it really spreads the workload out. So that's a concept that I think works really well.
Awesome. I think you're coming out with kind of a packet later this year that might help with that. So Veronica, it's definitely worth getting in touch with Steve and maybe following up with him to get more information on that. But it's absolutely a great idea. I agree.
Yeah.
This question is from Dan. We got a lengthy question here. Dan says, I'm a Rotarian. Let's see. It's about 1,500 students. Wow. This is a long one. I'm trying to get to the question here in just a second. You know what? It's a long idea. I'm going to skip that one, Dan, but I'm going to share it with Steve, and I'm going to have him follow up with you directly. From Don Albert, we have any chance we can have a copy of the sponsorship levels and benefits? Don, I would recommend getting in touch with Steve here. He'd be happy to share some of those sponsorship levels with you, and you can also find it in the recording that we're going to send out tomorrow. Unless, yes, if Steve, are you willing to send that out if people email you?
Oh yeah, sure, no problem. Anybody can contact me with any direct questions, and I'm happy to help. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. And Colleen Berlinger, what are the event registration systems that are out there that handle both race participants and volunteer needs? I know you listed a few, but are there any others that you can list?
I don't have any specific names of other ones. I know those are some of the big ones, and we've worked with a couple of them. And there's a lot of them out there, and it seems like there's new ones springing up, all the time. My recommendation would be to just, kind of really kind of go through their offerings, and then if you can talk to a couple of people that have used it, that's always a big help. To really kind of get the scoop from somebody who's been using it. So that's what I would recommend. Yeah.
Great. From Emily Hastings, I recognize that name, Emily. Welcome back. Do you have any specific tips to get people to engage in peer-to-peer fundraising? We have a very hard time with this for our current 5K.
Yeah, it's I think it ends up having a lot to do with the cause. If it's something that kids kind of can resonate with, you're going to have an easier time getting them to do it. One of the things that we look at doing sometimes, though, is offering some kind of contest or prize for the kids or the class of kids or the school or however you kind of split it up that has the most, that raises the most money. Like maybe they get a pizza party or an ice cream party or something like that. So there's kind of an incentive. It's like a contest. If you can kind of create that contest competitive kind of feel for it, that can tend to boost it up quite a bit. So that can be helpful.
Great. Running contests, incentives are always good. From Valerie DeGrory. Sorry if I'm butchering your guys' names, you guys. What do you suggest for a registration fee to sign up?
So it's a little dependent on the community, but what we like to do is we like to keep the registration under $50 most of the time, because what we're trying to do is maximize the number of participants, because what you're going to do is you're really looking to make most of your revenue from the sponsors and the peer-to-peer. So you're really kind of almost, I mean, some nonprofits really look at the registration revenue as just, you know, kind of to cover their cost of everything and putting on the event. So the more people you can get there, the more you can get from your sponsors, and the more peer-to-peer you can get. So rather than trying to get a higher amount per person, we kind of try to keep it in that, you know, $40 range is pretty good in most markets. And again, it depends on the market. You know, you can probably get more for it in New York than you can in Minnesota. You know, so but we try to keep it pretty modest.
Good. Thank you for that, Valerie DeGregory. I don't know why I had trouble with that before. This next one from Nancy Newhart. If it's an older church community, is a fun run feasible? How much does demographics have to play in it? What do you think about that?
It makes it a little tougher because when we look at our events that we put on, the core demographic is kids from, you know, kindergarten to graduating high school and their parents. That's the core. And then we have a kind of a secondary demographic is kind of that young adults, you know, 18 to 35. That usually it can be a pretty good chunk too. It's a non-competitive event, so a lot of, you know, folks, older folks especially, will walk it, and that's fine. But you know, you really want to look at in the community if there is a good population of kids and younger families. That's going to give you a stronger showing for the event, for sure.
Great. And this one from Carol, thank you for that, Nancy. Carol Broderick, asking if we're going to email the PowerPoint slides. We will be emailing the presentation, the recording, in an email within the next 24 hours. So look for that email. It's just going to be up on YouTube, and you guys can watch it and share it with all of your constituents. So please send this out when you do get that. One recommendation here from Jason Savage. It's Your Race is a good platform. Thank you for that, Jason. So one thing that Jason recommends is Your Race. So maybe Google that. That's all I got for questions. If you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. If not, I just want to thank you again here, Steve, for coming and joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Lots to learn on the Fun Run front. And, yeah, hopefully we'll be seeing you on here again.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I'm happy to share the information, and hopefully it'll help some folks be able to take a look at maybe adding this to your fundraising arsenal for your nonprofit.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. We hope to see you back here for another webinar. We have them all the time, so please look out for them on a variety of subjects. Thank you, Steve, from Brighter Tomorrow. That's it for us today. We're out. Take care, folks.
Great. Thank you.